Hello, this is Dazzling, and this is a video about the Saltmarsh Wilderness. Sinister's Secret of Saltmarsh is an expansion that includes 10 quests, but more relevant to this video, it includes a wilderness zone. Running this wilderness zone in heroic levels has little benefit, but at legendary levels it can provide a variety of useful items and objects through the easy and simple method of farming a wilderness zone. You can get rare filigrees, more common ones that you know what to do with, and very useful artifacts, equipment, Sentient XP Gems, Star Fragments, and the elusive Nebula Fragment by running around killing rares in this Slayer area. To get an idea of what you can expect by farming this area, I ran the Saltmarsh Wilderness 100 times and logged what I got in a spreadsheet. Then did math on it to determine what you can expect to get on average by running this Slayer zone. The route I personally used is shown on the screen currently, and is basically just a clockwise route. It hits every encounter, and the ending site is fairly close to a rest shrine if we would like to get back resources. The typical runtime is about 6 to 7 minutes depending on the character and the number of rares. And with factoring in a little bit of having to reset the instance between runs, we can expect an 8-run session to take about an hour. While I use this route, there are a few other viable options that are similar in length. Based on examining the number of pixels between locations on a copy of the map, this route is a little bit better. It functions largely the same as the route I used, but after Brine Lurker it basically runs the rest of the original route in reverse. This route shaves the number of total pixels traveled by about 1.6%, so while it's a valid option, I wouldn't overly sweat what you choose to run. The best route based on my analysis was actually to start with Letitia, then basically do the same clockwise route I do in my normal runs. This route is about a 2% decrease in travel time. Another route I've seen is to basically do my initial route in reverse. Starting with Bilge Lurker, you then do a lap counterclockwise of the entire Slayer. This route performs quite similarly to the route I used, but it's a little worse, with a 0.4% increase in travel time. Overall, the route isn't a big issue. As long as you do something resembling one of these routes, your runtimes should be 6 to 7 minutes or less. So we've gone over why and how we want to run Saltmarsh, but let's actually look at what we can expect to get. Two of the most Saltmarsh specific things you can get are Star Fragments and Nebula Fragments, which are both used to upgrade a variety of items. Across 100 runs with 728 chests opened, I got 40 Star Fragments, which equates to 0.4 Star Fragments per run, a 5.5% Star Fragment chance per chest, and an estimated 18 chests per Star Fragment. The binomial proportion confidence interval using the Wilson score interval puts the 95% confidence level at 4.06% to 7.40% on the actual drop rate on Star Fragments. At 8 runs in an hour, if you're trying to get 5 Star Fragments to upgrade an item to Legendary, you can likely expect to take at least 12 to 13 runs to get enough Star Fragments to upgrade the item, or about an hour and a half spread across either 2 characters or 2 separate ransack windows. Now Nebula Fragments didn't go as well. I did not get any Nebula Fragments from the 100 runs. Based on the number of chests opened, that implies that the drop rate of Nebula Fragments is less than 1 in 200 with 95% confidence, and since I didn't get any at all, for all I know it could be 1 in a million. Nebula Fragments can also now be acquired by trading in 100 Star Fragments and 500 Threads of Fate. Given that at the rates I got them, it would be expected to take about 250 runs to get that many Star Fragments, or about 30 hours in the Saltmarsh Wilderness. Hopefully you don't have acquiring a Nebula Fragment as a requirement for your starting gear set. When it comes to Filigrees, I got so many normal Filigrees that I didn't bother keeping track of them. If your goal is to amass some basic Filigrees, getting an average of about a chest every minute leads to a very large number of these base level Filigrees. However, rare Filigrees were of course significantly rarer, so I did keep track of them. In total, across 100 runs, I got 58 rare Filigrees, for an average of 0.58 per run, an 8% drop chance per chest, and an expected 13 chests per rare Filigree. In total, there are about 116 different Filigrees that can drop in Saltmarsh, meaning that if you're looking for one particular rare Filigree, you can expect that on average each rare Filigree is a 0.86% chance of being the rare Filigree you were after, and your chance per chest is a 0.069% chance of your desired Filigree being in there, making it a 1 in 1500 chance of the correct rare Filigree per chest. While Saltmarsh Slayer can be a good way to get a decent number of rare Filigrees, expect that quite a few of them are going to be things like Wild Hunter Seeker and Divinity Sunder, where you're not entirely sure they're worth the storage space they take up. Artifacts, equipment, and Sentient XP Gems all somewhat fall under the umbrella of things you can feed to your sentient weapons. If you're looking for a particular artifact or piece of equipment, you can typically get it pretty quickly, so what we're most interested in is the Sentient XP we can get from items. There are 6 possible artifacts that can drop from the Saltmarsh Wilderness, and all of them have very similar drop rates across these runs, except for the Brass Admiral, which dropped at about half the rate of the others. In total, I looted 68 artifacts for an average of 0.68 artifacts per run, a 9.34% chance of an artifact per chest, and an expected 11 chests per artifact. When we convert these numbers to Sentient XP, in total I got just under 20,000 Sentient XP for an average of about 200 per run, 27 per chest, and 1600 per 8 runs. For our equipment, the distribution between the 3 item drops was pretty similar. In total we got 106 items with an average of 1.06 items per run, a 14.56% drop chance per chest, and an average of 7 chests per item. The binomial proportion confidence interval was actually 12.18 to 17.31%, which is higher than we would expect given that chests on normal difficulty have been said to be a 10% drop rate. The drop rate appears to be considerably kinder, which I at least won't turn down. For Sentient XP totals, in total we got just under 32,000 Sentient XP, for an average of about 320 per run, 44 per chest, and 2,500 per 8 runs. Sentient XP Gems had a significantly lower drop rate than the other sources of Sentient XP, but because they're worth a whopping 1,000 XP, they still account for a large portion of our overall Sentient XP. In total, we got 19 Sentient XP Gems for an average of 0.19 per run, a 2.6% drop rate per chest, and 38 chests between Sentient XP Gems. Aside from Nebula Fragments and specific rare Filigrees, Sentient XP Gems are the rarest items in the Saltmarsh Wilderness. For Sentient XP totals, in total we got 19,000 Sentient XP for an average of about 190 a run, 26 per chest, and 1,500 per 8 runs. In total, when we add up all our sources of Sentient XP, I got a total of 70,520 Sentient XP from these 100 runs, for an average of about 705 per run, 97 per chest, and 5,600 per ransack. To put these numbers into perhaps a more easily relatable and understandable metric, if we compare the amount of runs to the costs to unlock Filigree slots, you can see that we expect with 8 runs taking about an hour to get close to unlocking a new sentient weapon up to 3 Filigree slots. If we're aiming for 5 Filigree slots, which is about the last milestone before the costs start really ramping up, we'd expect 28 to 29 runs, or about 3.5 hours of farming the Saltmarsh Wilderness. The 100 runs I did would be expected to get a bit more than enough XP to get a weapon up to 7 Filigree slots, and took a bit over 10 hours of time spent in the wilderness. And of course, to get a fully unlocked sentient weapon, we'd expect to take about 300 runs, or close to 35 hours of continual farming. On the bright side, by that time you'd have enough star fragments to get a nebula fragment. Overall, while I don't have large amounts of data currently to compare how effective farming sentient XP or star fragments in the wilderness is compared to other methods, it's certainly not the worst method. The expected Sentient XP per hour comes out close to 6,000, or per minute about 100. For running quest on Elite to come out to better XP per minute with a 33% drop rate of 1 level 29 to 30 item per quest, the quest would have to be 1 minute long, which you'll typically find difficult to do in any given quest. If we even wanted to do a brief comparison to the Tensor's Weapon Box pay-to-win method of acquiring Sentient XP, Tensor's Weapon Box is 50,000 Sentient XP for 4,000 DDO points. To get that amount of Sentient XP from Saltmarsh rares, we would expect to take about 8 to 8.5 hours. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and got something interesting or useful out of it. If you have a recommendation for another subject of a 100 run style video, feel free and let me know. Just keep in mind that 100 runs takes a while, so anything that takes a long amount of time would take significantly longer to put out. Thank you for watching and have a great day.